So, in the modern New World Order, black supremacy and white supremacy is being fused together and weaponized against all the rest of ethnicities. And so, when I look at the future, I see the rise in these supremacy complexes on the algorithm and in society. And I see, now this does not apply to all blacks. This does not apply to all whites, right? We all know that, right? However, when we look at the algorithms and when we look at the attitudes in mainstream society, we see this rise in anti-demism from many blacks and whites. I've experienced it in my life. And there's a reason why people of color, unfortunately, do not engage with my work. And in reality, a lot of them, they like the old ALEX ANSARY, right? That just covered conspiracy theories or current events that they were comfortable discussing. But there's a reason why you don't see them in my audience supporting my work, because I call out the hypocrisy. They say that their own lives matter, but yet they fail to defend others that are murdered off the face of the earth. They won't recognize it. And the reality is, even though there is this history between blacks and whites with regards to slavery in the US, in reality, blacks prefer whites to other minorities due to the brainwashing of society, within society, right? The constant bombardment of Islamophobia, anti-Themism, and anti-immigrant, migrant rhetoric. And so they falsely believe that all these migrants and immigrants, whether they be Asian, Arabic, Afghan, they falsely view them as a threat. And so even though they have a beef with whites, some of them, regarding white supremacy, they will still date white people, as Terry Crews pointed out in his book, Tough, as he also called out the white supremacy or the black supremacy complex, in which some people told him over the years that the darker the skin, the more compassion. And that's just not the truth, okay? The level of compassion in your heart has to do with you as a soul that is animating the human vessel. To then say that the darker the skin, either the more discrimination or the more compassion, is to engage in racism oneself. And so it's hypocritical for there to be such anger on one hand towards white people, and we understand the historical relationship there between whites and blacks, but to also prefer white content creators. So when I do talk to people of color about the racism that does exist from some white people in the alternative media, they don't have anything to say about that. There's one individual that did ask me on Facebook, and I'll go over my reply right now. What do I think about full spectrum survival? When I post the screenshot from his channel, you can take a look at full spectrum survival. And even though he doesn't necessarily engage in white supremacy overtly, he points the finger at Middle Eastern terrorists, also known as Hamas, with his headline, "Red Alert, Stay Inside, America has been warned." And the reality is, this already went down last week with the supposed day of jihad warning from this former Hamas member who might as well be an intelligence asset, whoever and whatever Hamas actually is. So instead of these people of color realizing that white supremacy is being weaponized against these individuals and these immigrants and these migrants, instead of recognize that, they don't call it out and they continue to consume that culture and that content. Because in the modern white supremacy, it's okay to be black as long as you support Trump. It's okay to be Latino in some cases, as long as you support Trump, and better if you're lighter skin, like a Nick Fuentes, whose father is Mexican, from what I've read. And so you have hypocrisy, by the way, from some black people. And there's actually a white person that signed up to one of my multiple YouTube channels with the channel name "White Makes Right," a white supremacy slogan. And then I go to see who he's subbing to, because now he's subbed to me, and he wanted spiritual information on exiting the matrix. He replied to a comment that I made on another channel, and he wanted spiritual assistance from me. And I'm thinking, like, You're not on the spiritual path if you're saying white makes right. So we look at his channel. He's subscribed to a lot of white people, but there's also subscribed to a lot of black voices as well. Nothing wrong with that, but it shows that that is a hypocrite. They say white makes right, yet subscribe to black people. There's nothing wrong with that, but it shows you that there are modern white supremacists out there that give the black pass, basically. And so in the modern white supremacy movement, there is a place for black people at the table. And there aren't enough black people calling this out. There is a Black Lives Matter movement that appears to be angry at white people, but you don't have, from what I understand, in Black Lives Matter, an understanding of the New World Order. An understanding of how these algorithms have divided us and have promoted racism and promoted the illusions of separation. So instead of this individual asking me what I thought about white supremacy, he wants to know what I think about certain personalities. And I answer him and he completely ignores my reply, completely wasting my time. So I tell him that I did record a video about conscious prepping. I don't know if you caught that. As you know, I'm the only person in the truth movement with a Islamic last name, as if I have the ability to do something about that, even though I'm Christian. In my experience, all these folks are okay with racism to folks like me, and they don't engage with me, and I've been harmed by prepper folks in a few ways. This guy, Full Spectrum Survival, mostly has a positive vibe. However, I see what he's doing with his thumbnail, telling people to stay inside, and showing pictures of Middle Eastern terrorists. I also feel that he's feeling the solar flare effects. As I say, they affect people's sense of safety. I call it catastrophobia, the fear of impending doom. While there is war, and I feel it too, I know the sensation they feel is coming from the solar flares, the eclipse, and more. I don't know of any preppers that teach their flocks to resist racism of all kinds, but if you know of one, I'll check it out. But until I see it happen, I won't watch anyone pushing fear of all migrants or Muslims. There's also a book I checked out about a white man that got into prepping and got out due to the racism that he witnessed, that he was not okay with. And I reviewed the book and had the same experiences with preppers that abused me, berated me, and stalked me and other things. I will speak more about that in coming videos. I'm about to record another one now about the problem with today's conspiracy folks. The folks I work for in Portland, Oregon, i.e. the Portland Preparedness Center, which is a name that I came up with, along with the phone number, which added up to 777. They knew they could take advantage of me and my free labor for 4 months because they knew that I had nowhere to go and that no one would help me. You might also have observed that many of these groups might be inclusive to those of African American heritage, including some in the alternative conspiracy media. But that inclusiveness does not extend to folks with my bloodline or ancestry, meaning it is not really inclusive or open to all. It's a big issue. However, in reality, you do not see many people of color in many of the off-grid Facebook groups. And in the past, when I complained about Nazi white supremacist stalkers in the off-grid community page, I was blocked right away. So the empathy factor is non-existent with today's preppers. My goal is to attract more people of color to my work, including in my father's ancestry or religion, as my audience has always been about 95% white, and that's due to various factors that I detail on my podcasts and videos. Basically, we're talking about the algorithm. It will prevent my work from reaching people of color and the people that I am trying to warn about the future false flags. My ability to clarify these ideas is increasing beyond my old ALEX ANSARY self and will continue as I get more into writing my ideas out, as my goal is a book. It's probably time to expand my theories on why people of color, nor my father's ethnicity, can never be found supporting my work, despite me clearly calling out white supremacy in our society, in the conspiracy circles, right? You would think, by the way, that I would have the respect of NEO Nazism for doing this. NEO Nazism will not speak to me. And I have sent him my recent videos. Even though I promoted his book over here, and I said that he has put out some intelligent things, The people of my father's bloodline cannot be seen supporting my work. I know my worth and my value, and I know that it's not right that people are not sharing on what I'm exposing. Your question should be, what do I think about the white supremacy taking over the truth movement? Not what do I think about XYZ personalities. Now, if you go to my recent post on Substack, in which I list many headlines, I link to, even though I'm not a fan of Rashid from the Young Turks, he did call out the black content creators by the name of Sneeko and others for hosting Nick Fuentes, who's a white supremacist, and basically asking, but not going deep enough, why are there black people commingling with admitted white supremacists? And why, I would ask, are they wearing the Punisher logo? Of course, I know the truth behind that. And there's many black people in this community and other communities, you may have noticed them as well, that are wearing the Punisher logo. Of course, there were some black people that were involved in January 6th. Not a lot of black people, but enough. Because even though those people in January 6th hate people from certain countries, even if they're against the New World Order, even if they're pro-America, even if they're Christian, it's not Islamophobia, it's anti-Themism, to be against all migrants and all immigrants and all ethnic minorities. Okay, but black people get a pass. And so what's really happening here, folks, is the continuation of slavery of black people. Okay, these black people that are part of the far right, that have not exited the left-right paradigm, they don't realize that they're still being used as slaves, that they can still be turned on in the future once they're used like slaves to do the dirty work. And so as I look at the future, I see a lot of blacks that are going to be used by the far right to harm other people. So even though you're witnessing online this supposed white versus black thing, there is actually a unity of blacks and whites in which many of them prefer whites and blacks. Blacks prefer whites, whites prefer blacks. And we're basically enslaved to these algorithms that are trying to promote this war amongst whites and blacks, but in reality, they hate some of the same people. As I told you, I tried to interview people in Portland, Oregon in 2007 about what they thought about a potential strike on Iran. And a black man told me, aren't you one of those dirty Iranians? Aren't you one of them bastards? And so not only have I been insulted by this demographic more than any other demographic, I have also stood up against racism towards them. And I've also tried to help them understand the real New World Order and try to help them stay out of these far left and far right echo chambers. But due to the illusions of separation and what I would call tribalism and their preference for white people over myself, which is fine, but why act like I'm subhuman? Because of white supremacy, mind control, neo Nazism programming. Why not hear out what ALEX ANSARY has to say about the things that are taking place? Why cozy up to people in the military and people in far right circles? That includes other individuals as well that I'm not going to name. And so there actually is a reason why you do not see people of color supporting my work, commenting on my work. And it is a sign of a serious sickness. You should not, if you're a man of God, be in a tribalistic mindset where you only prefer certain ethnicities, right? And what is happening now with black society needs to be called out. Okay, it's not just white supremacy that is the issue. As Terry Crews pointed out in his book, Tough, which I read a sampling of on this channel, it is also black supremacy. And what we're really dealing with is blacks and whites taking over the world with other token minorities and oppressing the humans that they are told that they are to oppress. And I'm here as a man of God to expose that and stand against that.